The things we know are not the clear-cut truths we believe them to be. Growing up, we're told, don't believe everything you hear. But that doesn't stop us. We just learn to require some evidence. But how do we decide what's enough evidence to support a belief? Telling a scary story to a child, all it takes is the boo thrown in at the end to convince a young mind that the threat isn't just imaginary, even if it's just for a moment. When it comes to larger beliefs, such as the religion we choose, how much evidence do we require? And how do we know that that evidence is sufficient to prove what for most religions is a choice for eternity? Most people stop questioning something after they've proven it to themselves. And as stated, children are much more easily convinced of things. Is it fair to ourselves to make a decision as a child that sets into stone boundaries for us as adults? We don't let any other kids make that kind of decision for us, so why would we take it from ourselves? If I were to tell you that leaves are green because it's the most efficient color for absorbing energy from the sun, you'd probably want some evidence. If I were to also show you a spectrum and point out that green is near the middle, where it can absorb some of the red light and some of the blue light, some of you might be okay to leave it at that. The clever part of your mind might be wondering, then why not black? Wouldn't it be able to absorb all wavelengths and thus be even better? But water is a limited resource, I say, and black leaves would get very hot, wilting most plants in all but the most aqueous of environments. This might be sounding plausible, and maybe the best explanation you've heard. With a couple more supporting statements, some of you might even be entirely convinced. What you don't know is I just completely made all of that up, just by connecting a bunch of maybes together, giving it a false look of validity. I honestly have no idea why leaves are green. Want to hate me? I made that up to show you just how easy it is to be convinced of something based on evidence. All religions have evidence claimed as exclusively supporting their own holy books, more than enough to convince a child, especially when it comes from their parents. It's enough evidence to reassure the believers throughout their whole life that they haven't been wrong all that time, and it's enough to hold on to keep them from digging deeper. Every idea in every religion can be cross-linked with facts that seem to support them, but nowhere near all are correct. So how do we fact-check ourselves if we can't trust evidence to be exclusively indicative of the truth? In reality, there is no way to know if something is absolute truth, and no way to know that a fact won't be disproved tomorrow. The absolute best we can do is add supportive evidence and hope that no one finds an exception that will topple the entire tower. Or is it? We're always looking for evidence that supports our beliefs. But perhaps far more important to an argument is a lack of holes. Instead of looking for evidence, we should be looking for the best arguments against our beliefs. If no one ever finds anything wrong with an idea, that idea is founded on much better ground than even ideas which are widely accepted. Just look at how many followers the Islam and Christian faiths have. They both claim the other is wrong, so at least one has to be. The chance that you're in the wrong group is near 50-50, so that's pretty uncertain. If instead we look at Newton's laws of motion, not many people have a real grasp of them, but a huge amount of thought has gone into them, and not the slightest hint of them being unstable has been found. This way of thinking is easy when we're arguing with others, but it doesn't come naturally for our own ideas. It really is the best method we have for rooting out myths and falsities, though. Plus, it also serves to prepare us for any arguments that may be thrown at us in the future. Seeing how this thought line is new to most of us, I'd like to share some techniques for fast, efficient fact checks. I see every belief system, cloud composition to religion, as a tree. Finding the trunk is the most important part because everything else stems from this being true. If there's a fact breaker here, then there's no reason to look any further because everything falls if the trunk breaks. If, for mere example, any kind of God were impossible to exist, then there'd be no reason to look for a 6,000-year-old Earth or a supernaturally caused flood, and all the religious arguments in the world wouldn't make a lick of difference. Of course, it isn't this easy, only an example. The root of the belief first, then work outward. Sometimes it's just a branch that needs removal, but other times we have to make the hard but necessary choice to remove an entire tree, or sometimes even grove. This thought process is for everyone, So I'll respect everyone's beliefs in this video and just teach you the power of critical thinking, but won't be using it on anything that someone might hold dear. These methods, of course, still don't provide proof that an idea is correct, but a zero-hole argument is a lot more convincing and a lot more likely to be true than just pointing at a bunch of facts and webbing them together into a possible explanation. Ask yourself what, if true or not true, would be the most devastating for the fact you want to check. Think outside the box, because if there were an easy weak point on a widely accepted idea, then someone's probably already looked there. There's a balance between looking for the biggest ground shaker and looking in the most likely place for one to exist. I always try to think of things in a way that no one else probably has, and it's worked well to diversify my own perspective on a lot of things. Don't just do a frontal attack. First, take a step back and examine the idea from many different perspectives to see which one is most likely to yield a productive thought line. Remember, you have to treat your own thoughts with the same level of scrupulousness as the idea in question. Because if you don't, everyone else will, and you don't want all your hard thought reasoning to be thrown out because of a hole you could have easily filled with an explanation had you thought about it beforehand. There is also a balance between keeping your mind from getting bored and giving up your logical thinking. If you're not enjoying it, then don't force it. Try it from a different direction, because it doesn't do any good if you give up after 5 minutes. Finally, you can see how the quality of your beliefs relies on your own thinking. No one can convince you of anything if you refuse to convince yourself. You have to trust yourself and go into this prepared to change, as hard as it is, if that's what your thoughts bear out. Otherwise, this is entirely a waste of time. Your mind is the most unique part about you, and how much you use it will determine how far you make it in life. It's a muscle that grows with exercise, so love the strain. The pain is how you'll gain. Now go out there and learn something from me today. And subscribe if you want to see more of my ideas unfold. Much appreciated. Thanks for watching. See you next time.